Hey there, everybody in the FFBE Global Facebook group, and hello to everybody who sees this video on YouTube as well. Welcome to a 1 week late episode of Ask an Old Mog. There's a good reason. There's a good reason, actually two good reasons. One, I've been really busy, and two, today's topic is really complicated, and I wanted to make sure I had good information to provide for you. So I've really taken my time to dig into the answer. And this came from a question that, or a comment that was posted on a previous video, so I'm always excited about that. Let's go ahead and dive into it. I don't want to drag this intro out for too long, so let's go ahead and dive into the question. In a previous video about chaining, right, that got really complicated about 8x caps and things like that, I got a comment that was kind of like this. This is from Troy. As an idea for a future video, have you ever done one, especially now with Kunshira's STMR upgrade, for players to weigh options of forcing true double hand versus true dual wield? What to consider: stats, killers, accuracy, magic or physical, innate chain cap, forcing an element by gear, gear-based amps, mitts from base to shift form, possibly more, but that's all off the top of my head. And how would you value each one? Troy, you are basically asking for like 7 different videos. So the good news is we've touched on a lot of these topics on previous videos. It may very well be worth revisiting some of these topics now that so much has changed about the game as this series has gone on. But with Kunshira's STMR upgrade in particular, I did want to touch on this true double hand versus true dual wield thing. So we're going to start there. We're actually going to turn this video, this question, into a handful of videos. Probably just 2, but I want to touch on the true double hand versus true dual wield situation in this particular video. So the reason why I'm asking that is that this is really comprehensive and complicated. It's a big part of how damage works, and while I think it's valuable, I think it's a kind of above the mark of where I usually aim for these videos. These videos are generally aimed at beginner players, more so than like what I'm going to call DV tryhards, right, who want to squeeze every ounce of damage out of their build. But I do want to talk about some general rules and guidelines, how you might make that decision as far as true double hand or true dual wield, and things that might help you kind of like decide how you want to build units and play around. Because the reality is this is extremely complicated. You know, how you decide is going to factor in more than just what I'm going to show you here. It's going to also include things like party-wide AoE amps, weapon imperils that exist on your party, how you gear specific units for races depending on what you're fighting. Is this a dark vision situation or a clash wills situation or just a trial? Like these are all really important parts of how you decide how am I going to build these units, and including but not limited to what units am I even taking based on what innate stuff do they have in their build, their kit. So really complicated, really great question, and one that we're going to touch on like a little bit, but I do want to give you some good information. When it comes down to true dual wield versus true double hand, generally speaking, a unit is going to have higher stats with true dual wield now that we have the 400% bonus. So previously, the true dual wield bonus was 200% and the true double hand bonus was 400%. So as long as you could gear for it, generally speaking, you were going to have, a little bit lower stats with true double hand, but the variance was going to be so much better because of true two-handed weapons. Now that they're both 400%, and especially now that with Kunshira's STMR, we can easily gear for 400% to attack and magic, it's a little bit different. This is especially true when a unit has weapons or gear that gives them bonus or flat stats, in particular weapons, because you can equip 2 of them. The examples that I can think of with this one are like things like Dark Rain, Flaring Ether Rain, and a little bit Roberta and Ignitos. We're going to talk a little bit more about her in just a second. Here's the swing, right? So variance on two-handed weapons is generally much bigger, has a much wider range, and a higher floor than one-handed weapons. This is going to equate to a higher possible burst of damage in most cases, especially when you are limited to the 6x cap. We're going to show you some math on this in just a minute, yeah, weapon variance. Weapon variance ends up being much bigger than just sticking on a second weapon most of the time. There are some exceptions to this rule, though, okay? So one of the factors you want to think about is innate chain limit boost. So the chain limit boost we talked about in a previous video caps out at 200%. Some units innately have that 200% without equipping any gear. And if you intend to do any kind of damage with these units, it's best to force them to do true double hand, because they have the same cap whether they are true dual wield or true double hand, and you're going to get more damage out of that higher variance roll more than you would simply by having a second weapon in their offhand. So an example of this is Summoner Lena. Let's go ahead and take a look at Summoner Lena, and we'll go into her right here. Summoner Lena was used to pretty good effect in last Dark Visions as a Fire Imperil field and a Fire Amplify field, and she, you know, could be geared for doing some damage. And the way you would look at this is she has this ability here called Dual-Wield Attacker. Now it says that she gets 200% magic, some defense and spirit, whatever. LB damage boost. She can equip 2 weapons. She gets equipment magic 100% when she wears 2 weapons. But chain limit boost is not limited to wearing 2 weapons. She gets this regardless of whether she's wearing 2 weapons or 1 weapon. And she doesn't have to gear for it. She hits the cap automatically. So you just freed up yourself a gear slot, whether you're talking about an accessory for like a Magister's ring, a Magister's helmet, a Magister's clothes, chest piece, or indestructible light materia, or even a vision card that has chain cap on it. You don't need any of that on her. You can just gear her for as much magic and true double hand as you can. And so for like a unit like her, it just makes more sense, you know, to squeeze as much damage as you can out of that 6x cap by putting on a really big high variance weapon like a one-handed or a two-handed katana, for example, that has magic on it. You're going to get a really big swing of variance, potentially giving you quite a bit more damage on a unit like Lena than you would just by giving her, you know, 2 weapons with pretty good magic on them. And that's just the way it is, because she doesn't have gear that gives her bonus stats. Okay, she's just strictly going off of the gear that you have in her hands. So, you know, give her the best you can, give her the best highest variance weapon you can, especially one if you've got like a good weapon in peril on the party. You know, me talking about katanas, most teams that were running her also had a katana imperil unit on there. So like if you were wearing a katana, she had a katana imperil to benefit from. Anyways, true double hand, right, is better if you have the 6x cap, especially if you have the innate cap built into your kit. So there you go. Lena, you would want a true double hand with, okay? But what about gear and units that have the innate chain limit boost and bonus stat gear? When you factor in that some units get significantly higher bonus stats from their specific gear, this will sometimes outweigh the gain from variance. So Dark Rain is an example of this. He often does more damage with 2 of his STMR than he does by forcing a true double hand build, just because he gains so much magic. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to look at Rain, right? And Rain, he is currently wearing an Esper, right? No gear. Mine's EX3, and he's got 4,396 magic. So by equipping a magic spear with true double hand, you know, let's just find one. We'll do magic, true double hand spear, right? Master Mune, why not? We are going to have to do... we're going to have to give him some true double hand. So we'll go ahead and give him, you know, abilities here. Seer of the Future for 200%. We can go ahead and give him Dazzling Demoness, for example, for the additional 200%. All right. Now we have 450 out of 400% true double hand, and we're kind of capped out there. So 7,122 magic. Okay. 7,122 magic versus 10,051 magic, right? We'll go ahead and take Dazzling Demoness off to be fair. All right. We're back down to 8,000. So even without a vision card, we have higher magic than we did with true double hand. Now, that is because both of these spears gives Ruler's Dark Lance. It gives him 1,250. So 2 of these gives him 2,500 magic, right? And they stack, and we're not even at full cap yet, right? We are only at 200 out of 400. So if we give him 2 of Kunshira's STMR, All right, we're at 9,000 magic. Don't even have any gear on yet, but we do have 400% true dual wield magic. Go ahead and give him a vision card. We'll go ahead and give him his own vision card. Now we're at 11,484. Heck, let's go ahead and put on the good Clash of Wills gear. Right, we're at 13.9. You know, we'll go ahead and set a unit as a leader. We're at 17.5. You know, it just keeps getting better and better and better with a unit like Dark Reign, because all of that just gets magnified. That 2,500 magic that he gains just gets magnified by all of the stuff you can put on him. That just ends up being a lot better for him, and he just does more damage as a result of all that higher magic. It's such a big gain that he gets more damage. But in recent Dark Visions, there have been times where people have made Reign true double hand because, you know, having a good gun imperil or a good whip imperil or something like that made him more viable as a damage dealer, true double hand. So sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but oftentimes a unit like Dark Reign, who gets that huge boost from bonus gear, right, is just gonna be better off just doing the true dual wield thing. Okay, not always. You kind of have to play with it, do some experimenting, see what works and what doesn't. All right. Our next factor is the 8x cap. When a unit gets the 8x cap from dual wielding, you want to focus on true dual wield no matter what. The added multiplier, especially when they get bonus stats from their gear, allows you to reach higher numbers than simply rolling a high variance. This math right here is really, really vague and really, really basic. But let's assume, you know, we're doing 9 damage, right? And we're multiplying that by 1.5 for a two-handed sword, right? The average variance of a two-handed sword. And then applying the 6x cap, we get 69 damage, right? Or let's take that 9, right? 9 damage times 1.15, which is the average variance of a one-handed sword, times 8 is 78. So like that 8x cap multiplying the damage just by that much bigger of a number gives you more damage in the end. I know those numbers look like a small change, right? 69 versus 78. But when we're talking about billions of damage that gets multiplied by either 6 or 8, that number swings really, really wide. And that's just average variance, right? There's also tons of other modifiers like LB damage buffs and killer buffs and weapon imperils and elemental imperils. This is just basic numbers, right? It's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. That divide is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger the bigger our numbers get. Okay, this is just basics. So if you have the 8x cap, you want to do anything you can to utilize that 8x cap. And in a unit like Dark Reign, you know, Flaring Ether Rain, in his case, right, we kind of have to use dual wield to get there. So we have his ability here, dual wield attacker, right? He can equip 2 weapons. When he's equipped with 2 weapons, he gets 100%. He's got the 2x cap, right? And then when you put on the Fury, right, chain limit damage boost goes up to additional 200 when he's dual wielding. So you have to be dual wielding to get this, and you definitely want it. So if he's got the 8x cap, Dwayne is another example, Nora is another example, Tifa is another example. Once you can get that 8x cap, you definitely want the 8x cap. But if you don't have it, better to just go ahead and do the best you can with 6x by having a really high variance weapon, okay? But if you've got that 8x cap, definitely use it. Rain is another example of a Flaring Ether Rain is another example of a unit that has some bonus stats from a good weapon that he can get. So yeah, definitely cool. 8x cap pretty much always guarantees you're gonna be using true dual wield. Last thing I want to mention, there are always exceptions. Roberta and Ignitos, despite having the 6x cap naturally and getting bonus stats from her gear, she still tends to do more damage in Clash of Wills with a true double hand build because of how much of a bonus is given from having high morale. This is going to get multiplied by the 6x cap and a high variance from the two-handed weapon to end up being just bigger than you would gain from her 2 of her weapons. So here's what I'm talking about. Her STMR is Crimson Malice, right? It gives, attack and magic 200 and also has bonus stats on it, which is pretty good. She's gonna wear 2 of these and it's gonna stack. It's gonna be pretty great, right? 8,000 magic, right? But she still ends up doing better variance because one-handed spear, the variance is only 1.3. The variance on a two-handed spear, just as an example, go ahead and put Master Mune on. You know, 1.25 to 1.75. That's a huge swing for a two-handed spear. And she doesn't have to use spears. You could give her whips, you could give her katanas, you could use her guns, you know, lots of options for magic weapons that are two-handed for her. That you could just give her an equipment that allows her to wear it. And she'll do better damage as a result of that because it's two-handed, and the big bonus from morale. So you got to factor in all the modifiers. But, you know, outside of Clash of Wills, by all means, go ahead and give her 2 of those weapons. It's going to make her quite a bit stronger. Let her do much better damage. But you're not really bringing Roberta for damage anyway. A lot of times you're just bringing her for tag chaining. But in Clash of Wills, you need every bit of damage you can. You know, if you're going to bring her, she's going to want to do as much as she can, and two-handed weapons are going to help her to do that. Okay. So last little bit here before I stop this video. I got some suggestions from somebody who is not necessarily part of the Facebook group, but who does watch these videos and was noticing a trend in how I gear my units, and that is Mood. So Mood, thank you so much for the tips and the information. I had forgotten about this, honestly. It's something that I knew in the back of my head, but I had forgotten about, and so I wanted to thank you for pointing it out to me so I can share this with our viewers here. These are some tips for how to gear your units if you're going to do true dual wield. If you're using 2 weapons that have the same variance, right, you want to put the higher attack weapon, if applicable, in the main or R hand on the left side of the screen. It's really goofy that it's the main hand and the right side hand, but it's on the left hand side of the screen. I'll show you exactly what I mean. We'll go into Dwayne here. Right hand is the main hand, and it is on the left hand side of the screen, which is really funny. So if you're using, for example, 2 swords that have the same variance, then you want to put the higher attack weapon or the higher magic weapon in his main hand. In my case, you know, I have Dark Ragnarok ++, which is 286. And then in his offhand, I'm going to put his STMR. That way he can get the best benefit of having that high attack stat in his main hand. However, let's say, for example, you are bringing 2 weapons with different variants. In that case, you want to put the weapon with the higher variance in the main hand, because the variance roll of your 2 attacks, or all your attacks, is picked up on from the main weapon. So the example that Mood gave me was, let's say you wanted to equip Dwayne with a one-handed axe, which has pretty good variance, and a sword in his offhand. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about here. One-handed sword, or one-handed axe here. Demon axe. Why not? Oh, that's two-handed. Come on. All right. There we go. This might seem goofy. Why would I be equipping him with an axe when he imperils swords? And, you know, why would I want to do that? Because if you have a unit like Abigail who can do Omni Weapon Imperil, or Kaito who can do Omni Weapon Imperil, 2B who can do Omni Weapon Imperil, and you can benefit from having a higher variance weapon in the main hand, then why not? You know, so in this case, axes have a variance, a max potential variance of 1.45 compared to a sword's 1.25. So if you're trying to squeeze every little bit of damage out and you're trying to get every potential, you know, high roll, having an axe in the main hand is better for him than a sword, especially if you can get like a really high attack axe like the Dark Visions axes and something like that. That ends up being better. But if you're not too worried about it and you just want to focus on like a whole sword party, generally better to go ahead and just put the best sword in his hand that you can. In our case, Dark Ragnarok. However, the Ragnarok and the Renegade both have the same variant, so it doesn't really matter. In this case, I'm just going to put the highest attack one in the main hand. Okay. It might seem like way too complicated, and it's the kind of thing that, like, again, I forget about sometimes just because I'm not really thinking too hard. But definitely make sure you put the better attack weapon in the main hand. And as a left-handed person, I'm slightly offended by that, you know, because I would definitely, if I was equipping 2 weapons, put my better weapon in my left hand. There you go. This is you know, right-handed fascist propaganda. That's what this is. I'm sorry, it's just a game. Put your good weapon in the right hand. Okay, it's on the left hand side of the screen. I'm going to take that as a victory and just call it what it is. But there you go. So if you're going to do true dual wield, make sure you're doing the best you can. Follow these guidelines. Thank you so much, Mood. That is really it for right now. That's all I really want to dive into on this one. I definitely want to touch on the other stuff in a later video. I'm going to try and do that this weekend, so that we can maybe hit some of those other topics and I can get back on schedule. And I hope that's helpful for you. Hopefully you pick up a lot about like how to decide, what you're going to do. Do I want to do true dual wield? Do I want to do true double hand? Hopefully you've crafted a bunch of Kunshiras, STMRs. The magic control ring is so valuable for a lot of units. So make sure you put those to good use. And if you're not sure, like if you want to see for yourself, what the difference is, go to the training dummy. I've shown you how to use the training dummy. Go try it for yourself and see, does a unit end up doing better average damage with two-handed weapons or a one-handed weapon, or two one-handed weapons rather. Or if you're a spreadsheet person, use a spreadsheet. If you are a person who likes to use the builder, builder next still serves a lot of good value for people. Definitely check that out and see what works best. It'll tell you most of the time, without having to worry too much about like weird exceptions, how to do the best damage you can. So there you have it. If you've got a question for next week's video, ask me in the comments. But like I said, I'm going to try and do some of the other stuff from that video request that Troy did, just to try and get some more of those answered, because I do think there's some really good stuff that Troy's wanting to hit on in those videos. But yeah, let me know if you've got a question. We'll do our best to try and answer it. Thank you so much, Mood, for the tips, and we'll see you guys in the next video. All right, take care.